Hi, welcome to video 8 of Excel Project 3, the first tier, the waterfall, and the IRR hurdle. Okay, so at this point, what we're doing is starting to split the profits. Now, the pref is kind of like a minimum money that you have to give to the money. Before that, essentially, before you start sort of taking in your essentially sweat equity per se, or the payments as if you understood from the structure video back from the prior modules, why these are so valuable. So in this situation, there's two different types of ways prefs can be done. There's sort of an operating pref and then a kind of a final year disposition pref. So the model I have it's this kind of hybrid. A lot of them actually, frankly, in a lot of the world right now, sometimes I don't even bother with prefs in the middle of the operating. They just strictly do them all at the end. If a cash flow is juicy enough, as this one's expected, we are going to split it. So what happens is, essentially now there's a rule, sort of a rule to follow at every moment. You always have to true up to the cash flows, right? This is as much money as flying through this thing. No more, no less. So at the end of the day, you have to distribute all of this. Now, when I had the numbers that were well above, if you notice, there's nothing left for the waterfall. There's no more calculations to happen. But under our hypothetical good times, we got some money here. So in the operating years are really simple. On the balance for the waterfall, essentially, right, it's just the 815 minus this pref payment, 251, and it grows there. So in the first years, now there's actually a test and then a split. That's actually for the following year, which I'll talk about in a second. This is just going to be split by whatever rule we have set up here, right? So in this case, 1 minus 30, or the 70%, and then the 30%, right? And then we can do a check here. So what ends up happening though, so basically in the cash flow lines, there's nothing happening on the second tier. For the first 4 years, it all runs the same. It's just that 70-30, if anything above, if anything is above. Pretty simple. The last year. All right, this is the second hardest thing, or the first hardest, depending. I don't really know. So here's the thing that's got to happen, right? I want you to kind of imagine maybe I don't know, you work at a restaurant, it's tip night, and all the tips go into a big jar. You have a certain way that, there's a certain amount that goes out first, maybe the house or the chefs or the waiters. I admit, I've never worked in a restaurant. Didn't have that experience, but I know people share around tips, and I know this kind of stuff happens, right? So you got the prep that comes off first. Perhaps that's, goes to the normal things of the waiters and waitresses. Now we're going to start trying to tip out perhaps the bar staff, the dishwashers, etc. Right? Everyone's got a different dynamic of how they're going to get paid. Now, if depending on where you are in this cut, you're going to watch those dollars get counted really, really closely. Correct? That's all I got to imagine here. So, at some point, the deal works is that after the preface minute, we are going to split everything 70-30. 70 for you, 30 for me. Now, I know we're not going to do the calculation just yet. You own 10% of the 70. Just leave it right there. Okay. So, at that point, but the 30 is all yours, so you really care about that. So after the 70-30, 70-30. At what point, once the money, which includes your 10%, the 8,066,000, has earned a 15% IRR, we stop the 70-30, then we go 50-50, which again, that's a lot more money to you, all yours to buy your boats with. So what you have to do is have a way to find that essentially that 15% hurdle, or what numbers tie it in. This is a puzzle which I'll only offer a partial solution tonight, or in this week's videos. In the prior weeks, I'll give you a little more hints to make it a little bit easier. But essentially, you're going to have a tool that will allow you to dynamically change up some of the allocations. And in this case, the easiest way to think about it conceptually is that there's too much. If you were to just divide everything 70-30, at some point that becomes too much money. So what you need to do is, for the amount of, you're finding the part of the waterfall or the pot of the money, everyone analogy you want, that needs to get 70-30, and then you're going to save off the other money that needs to be split 50-50. I'll tell you the tool. This will tell you exactly where I apply it. I use a goal seek and I have it automated to a macro, like you saw in the break-even thing on Excel Project 2. So essentially, I'm pulling some excess money out. This is the number that's being changed. I'll tell you that it's being added in here. Oops. Right there, so you can just kind of see where this thing applies. I'm kind of giving you all the hints actually right now, guys, but I might do another one where I actually show you and run the macro. But so essentially, I need to figure out how much it is. Then essentially, once I've figured out the line that gives me this 15% error, that's what this check is here, right? And that's what this is. This check is a target minus actual, which you're familiar with that tool. Once I've done that, I have to kind of recombobulate myself, come up with the amount of money that I need to split, essentially 80-20, and then I can then send the rest into the second tier. Actually, I think I got another little typo here. That helps. That's essentially what we're doing here, right? So those are the steps. It's not that hard. Now, there are other ways to do it. In fact, you'll see if you watch a lot of the other videos or the methods, this is maybe the more complex way. This is the very dynamic way. This allows for all types of dynamic things to happen with pref payout in prior years. Other ones, if you don't have the pref payout, you could just sort of do a compound interest, essentially do an FV at whatever the 15% is, and find that there's simpler methods, but they actually require you to change the terms of the deal. I don't want your model to fit the deal. I want the deal to, I'm sorry, I don't want the deal to fit the model. I want the model to fit the deal. So I'm showing you kind of the most complex way. If you can handle this, you can kind of handle it all, I like to say. So once you do that first tier, you check basically, then you go back through and calculate it, and then you leave everything else here for the second tier. So the trick about it is that you're kind of doing this calculation twice. In that first, you're going to essentially just do it. That's why it's called test. That's like 70-30 without a breakpoint, right? There's been no, by the way, you can just, it doesn't make any difference it's only in year 5 this is happening, right? So this test is just 70-30 unconstrained, right? In fact, let me, I don't really want to show you. So maybe I do. So 70-30 unconstrained leaves us 16.88%. That's a problem. You're getting money. Your money's not going to you. You want that money to go for you. You want all your tips. You want your promotes so you can buy your boats. So what my little trick does, I hit the button, and it looks like my macro might be disabled. So I will undo, which is like the same thing. And now I'm basically going to siphon off this 1.1 million. Then I now know that if I do the calculation this way, I get to 15%, and now it's okay. Why you need to do the next step? The problem is these are not actually the correct numbers that you're actually going to be splitting on. I know it's a little bit confusing, right? The actual thing that you need to do is kind of recombobulate up to what money should have, because this calculation's here, you need to kind of backward solve. Maybe there's an easier way to do this than I show, actually, that I think about it, but I haven't played around with this. I'm not going to really show you now, but you need to come back to how much money should have been there. Then you redo the actual. So this is like the true splits. Then you rerun the hurdle check here, and then, haha, 15%. Now you've got left. That means when we do the second tier one, you'll just be able to do sort of some of the simple math and kind of get right to the answer. So, all right, that is it. I will tell you, this is probably confusing. I have to admit to you, there's like no easy way to explain this. I have probably done this 50 different classes over my years of teaching. When I was doing full time, I mean, I don't do this as much anymore, so I do it by a couple times, once a year. I don't even know what I'm doing right now, but it's not easy. You have to kind of do it. You have to just kind of understand it. It just has to click. You have to just sit there with a spreadsheet and just kind of grunt with it. I do not have perfect language to tell you how to do it. I'm just sorry, nobody does. This is one of the hardest things to learn to figure out, guys. And look, there are probably people selling videos and stuff that are probably doing this better than I am, to be quite honest with you. you just have to kind of do it. I mean, and the problem is everyone's got different methods a little bit to explain it, and it's good to learn others. I mean, I'll be honest with you. If you're going to be a hardcore real estate analyst, you should watch other people's videos, or I mean, I think sometimes they charge those things, and it's up to you to decide what you want to do on that. I don't really know even what they cost, but there's different ways to do it. There's different methodologies to it. It's not easy, but it's very solvable, meaning that if you actually work on it, it won't be nearly as hard as it looks. So you have the answers, so that really helps you a lot. All right, that's the first tier. We'll finish it out on the second tier and the payouts.